Good morning, everyone. This is Lotta's newest astrologer, Lori, and I am going to preview our upcoming celebrity webinar. In this case, as I explained last month, you can go check out that video on Lotta's channel. We are discussing a triple, twisted, and even criminal connection between three people. Um, Thank you for attending the first webinar in this complex. And I think we're going to go until maybe a couple weeks after Christmas. For those of you that are new and don't know me, I'm Lori, an intuitive astrologer. And each month on the 14th, for a mere $10, you are invited to a celebrity, in this case, slash criminal, notorious webinar. And what we're doing is we're looking at Ghislane Maxwell. Is that her real name? No, it's not, actually. And we're looking at Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein. Now, it's a good practice when you're an astrologer to leave people alone for a year after they've been deceased. The soul is still acclimating back home. And it's not good to pull that energy back to earth in our practice. And it's the same thing in your devotion. I'm Catholic and Christian. And while we yearn and we want our family members back, the best gift we can get for the ascension of their soul, give for the ascension of their soul, no matter who they are, is to send our prayers to lift that person, not to yearn and try to pull them back here, because some souls are so earthbound that it's really hard for them to cross through those veils back to divinity. So in this case, on the 14th of every month, you can go to Lotta's website and find me, a reader, and check the services that I offer. Before I forget, Astrology by the Stars, a school taught by me with my intuitive and sensorial methods, begins on September 7th at 10 a.m. We meet every Tuesday for an hour and a half in 10-week modules. You pay for each of those 10-week modules. I know that PayPal and some other, I think it's called Klarma or Afterpay, these things, if it's too big an investment right now, you can pay in increments. PayPal has that already set up. So please go to Lotta's link and look for that. We begin sharp at 10 a.m. You'll get the link for the classes when you sign up. And then I may even send emails right before the class to admit you. We meet via Zoom for an hour and a half, and this intensive training, and it's really exciting. It's I teach you so that you can't even believe how much you're actually learning, and in a practical manner as well. And after 4 of those 10-week modules, you will have enough knowledge to begin your own astrology practice. Now, we'll be done, I think it's either the end of May or the beginning of June, for those of you that come and join Astrology by the Stars with me, Lori, beginning September 7th. If I have enough interest, I'll also open up a Thursday morning class. So you can let me know. And without further ado, let's get back to the point of this webinar. And this is about the celebrity, and in this case, criminal. These people will always be notorious in my offers for you to come see analysis in real time on the 14th of every month. Now, if you join the first webinar, you know that in the teaser, and it's the video on Lotta's channel that looks like three people bound in chains because they're actually in a tryst. What's applicable to human nature that we can all relate to is that our connections and communications and the people we choose to hang around indeed influence us in fated ways. And as these three people's lives intersected, the end result was really ugly. And the things that they did together had some serious Geminian, um, Geminian and diabolical Geminian tone to their everyday actions. Now that there's an inquest now that there's two of the three characters incarcerated, and now that there's a court hearing, and now that they have been, the truth always bubbles up, friends. Anybody studying astrology, planning on being an astrologer, anyone who's a budding astrologer, please know that fact of life. I'm 59 years old. The truth will always come out. It's inevitable because love's the most powerful force on earth, and because light is always more powerful than darkness. These three people intertwined in these chains that bind them um, acted in very criminal behavior. And so you can make a note in the comment below. On the 14th of September, we'll be doing the first man in this triple tryst. Today I'm going to talk about another man that had a big influence over what's going on right now. And believe me when I tell you, our ancestry absolutely has fated and karmic consequences. And things can skip a generation. I do legacy readings. So if you've done the ancestral lineage and you've got a birth date of your great, 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 whomever, I flesh out that person for you because just like DNA strands, astrology has cosmological repetition in that karmic evolution or devolution, as families are here to work out conflict resolution, are here to diminish ego, are here to be humble and serve as a being a team player in humanity, not some demigod, not some despot. For in this case, that's indeed the most interesting dynamic, I think. And speaking of this Geminian and diabolical complex, it began with Ghislane Maxwell's father. We all have Gemini in our charts, so don't start pointing your fingers at people. Now, if you have a sun, moon, and rising sign dominant Gemini, the complex is even more. Well, what does that mean? It's ruled by Mercury. Excuse me. So in communication and in thought, these people can fly to heaven in a second and fly back to hell. Mercury's its ruler, and when you think about Mercury in a thermometer, it's a very liquid and very slippery emollient metal, okay? People that have Gemini dominant in their charts forever have this twinning. So does Pisces, so does Sagittarius. Gemini always is born, especially for three keys are in Gemini, or you have a stellium in Gemini, with this dilemma of two appearances, an inner conflict and an outer collision. And inevitably it comes to be. If you recall when I was showing you the webinar about my upcoming classes, Astrology by the Stars, taught by me, Lori, I explained to you that it's very, very important for us to look at Mercury and the moon because those elements in the chart determine one's behavior. For absolutely your feelings become your thoughts and will inevitably be your actions, okay? So in this case, Ghislane Maxwell is currently behind bars. She was a British socialite, but was she really? No, actually not. She's Jewish. How did this start? This started before her birth, when her father would be a man of disguises. He was actually born Jan Ludwig Hock in pre-Czechoslovakia. He was impoverished. He's got a Gemini sun. His daughter has a Gemini ascendant. So her daddy was literally on her whole life. And she was his favorite child of 9 children. And she was the baby. She was born on Christmas Day. And she, as I explained in the Celebrity Webinars preview, she indeed used tactics like Santa would as she lured young girls into what would be hell for them and sexual deviance and secrecy. She and her father have a lot of similar patterns. I see this when I do my legacy readings, and I've gone back to the early 1700s in the work that I've done. you'll see these repeated patterns in family because we haven't quite worked out our karma. So this Geminian dilemma that's really prevalent not only between father and daughter in this complex, but it's also so significant in the relationship between Prince Andrew, Ghislane Maxwell, and Jeffrey Epstein. So comment below and tell me, do you prefer to see Prince Andrew, which I'd plan to do next, his analysis, or do you want to do Jeffrey Epstein? Now, if you say Prince Andrew, and I'm leaning that way because these two people are alive, Ghislane's alive and Prince Andrew is alive. However, some sort of peculiar and curious demise, just like Ghislaine's father, in a curious and mysterious end of life, um, is no longer with us. Neither Epstein nor her father. Now, her father's Geminian double life began when you see, I'm not a psychologist, so I never pretend to be this supreme and wise analyst. However, I've lived 59 years, I've met a lot of people, I've served the public in many capacities, and there's an inner torment when you have any of your three keys or a stellium in Gemini because there's not a congruent integration yet. It often doesn't happen until 40, 50, 60, sometimes never in one's life. And in this case, pre her birth, but in karmic destiny, fate, and in the creation of being, God has plans for all of us. So before she was even born, somewhere in this young boy's future, when Robert Maxwell was born, the name he took, his fourth name actually, and possibly more, because he had different identities all through his life. Gemini will wrestle with this. Who am I? Who am I supposed to be? Who am I supposed to be right now? What's expected of me? But is that who I really am? This is this Geminian complex of the twins. Sagittarius experiences this, and Pisces experiences this. So in Czechoslovakia, one of 8 children in extreme poverty, so much so that the children didn't even have enough shoes to wear. They would have to share a few pair of shoes among 8 children. This Jan Ludwig Hawk would indeed really live a life of this tortured Geminian complex, in that not only was he born a Yiddish Jewish into a Yiddish Jewish family and of Jewish faith, he even tripped over to that evil twin of Gemini and fought against the Jews for Hitler. He took on different names. He took on different personas. And we're talking about ego, imago, and the id, and the psychological and subconscious coming to be of an individual. This tainted and spoiled and corrupted person actually brought this into what would be his family eventually. So he fought against his bloodline in heinous and horrible ways. He amassed money and guised himself with a phony accent. To hear him speak, he had a British tone and this perfected aristocratic image that was totally false. And so we are the sons and daughters of our parents, no matter what, no matter how much we try to resist it. We can't change DNA, genetics, traits, behaviors in this complex that God created, no matter how many disguises we try to put on to the world about our fabulous lives and our made up hair and makeup and fake teeth and all the other ridiculous things that human beings do. As a double Taurus, this is kind of absurd to me and always has been. Robert Maxwell was the final name that he chose as he climbed these erudite steps to the ladder. owned a football team, owned several newspapers, and then the whole family is now involved in this disguise. So their name is not really Maxwell. They are Jewish, but they pretend to be British um, aristocracy, and they amassed great wealth. This disguise continued until his final days, when he met his final outcome in the deep blue sea, the waters of the ocean that he loved so much, on a yacht. His death is as mysterious as is Jeffrey Epstein's. The man for whom his daughter, his favorite daughter, for whom his sun is on her ascendant Gemini, and she had two lives and two faces and disguise and pretended to be a socialite and pretended to be something she really wasn't, because they didn't acknowledge their Jewish faith nor their actual names, and nor did they reconcile in this lifetime, at least the father, that he was indeed a poor Jewish man from a Yiddish family, and he rose in the status of earthly means. We all have that potential. Did he do it honestly? No. And so, one of the reasons that this, and you'll see, and if you do choose Prince Andrew, like I prefer to do, but I'll do what you guys want, because I'm making so many friends. And by the way, thank you. On a side note, I love you guys. I am having so much fun. And if you study with me, you're going to be investing in yourself for a very fulfilling career. I love the people that I met, the women that were in my webinar, the first celebrity webinar, are now friends, and we thoroughly enjoyed this intellectual discussion. Back to her father and where this began. Not only did he have this guised accent that he carried on for the rest of his life, but his ego grew so big, and the imago and the id so big in power, that he became this big, portly man. He was bigger than life. His ideas were bigger than life, and he did amass a fortune, but he did it corruptly. And in his birth chart, we don't know his birth time, so we don't have a definitive rising sign. And when you study with me in astrology, you'll learn that that's the marker for the rising sign. It is indeed where the sun was on the horizon of morning that day at 6 a.m., where the sun was coming through the constellation, though you may have been born at midnight or 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. So, what we do know about this man, and I'm leaning for a Taurus moon. He could have been an Aries moon or a Taurus moon. His actions and activities and his lifestyle, they said that he was so greedy, and you know how expensive caviar is. He loved all things of the sea. He had a yacht that he named Madame Ghislane, and he was such a gluttonous and big personality that he would scoop the caviar by the handfuls and eat it with his mouth. We know that caviar is expensive, very delicious, but caviar is served with a teeny tiny little golden spoon, but not this Robert Maxwell. And we can see in his persona, in this guise, this phony disguise that he created in his person, and the castle he lived in, and the rich tuitions he paid for his children to be schooled at Oxford, where Ghislane met Prince Andrew, and that would eventually introduce him to Jeffrey Epstein. Robert Maxwell had, he was the CEO of this, the owner of that, but he embezzled money, and it trickled down not only to his daughter, who has a demented and twisted psychosexual preferences and corrupted morality. Not only did it trickle to her, but to his sons as well, who were sued, arrested, in somewhat of a Ponzi scheme that they stole from people. And that is a dilemma of the Geminian complex. That Gemini, more than any other sign, pickpockets, thieves, takes what's yours, especially ideas. They'll be plagiarists and copyright thieves, that sort of thing. And there's this twinning going on when they know it's wrong, but they do it anyway. And the thing with crime is, the more you get into it, the deeper you get, the more you realize you can't get out of it. So you might have this awakening of sometimes you did, but now you're involved with all these corrupt people and these criminal people. Indeed, what happened in this triple tryst between Ghislane, Jeffrey Epstein, the women that they trafficked, abducted. I shouldn't even say women, these girls were little girls. And the lure of getting your hair done and manicures and massages and all this upper class social, excuse my French, bullshit for a child to do heinous, secretive, sexual, deviant things. And then the threats that came if should the girls tell. One woman they even made have vaginal surgery so that if she was some Russian who was terrified, they threatened to take her child away from her, had vaginal surgery performed so that the men that they trafficked her to would think she was virginal, and then threatened to throw her in the swamp in Florida to have the crocodiles eat her, alligators, whatever. Um, I mean, this is just diabolical. So back to Robert Maxwell, who's not Robert Maxwell, he's Jan Ludwig Hawk. And one of the most interesting pictures of the stars in heaven at the moment he drew his breath would be this dilemma in an excess of sexuality and money. Believe me, he had a secret other life. The focus in the webinar, maybe if enough of you are interested, when we're done with our in-depth studies of the psychological analysis of these people for Ghislane Maxwell will be on trial in October. For all of us in the world, we're going to have a very difficult fall. The astrology shows. Sorry, I think a little spider just fell down into my. Thank you, spider. That's kind of karmic because, as I said to you, um, when I introduced the celebrity webinar and did not reveal the three characters I told you, they were embroiled in kind of a spider web. We just learned that in prison in New York City, in Ghislane Maxwell's high security prison where Jeffrey Epstein also met his demise, she has to Zoom her attorney because of the pandemic and the dangers of infection. And so she has this, they gave her this big rolling cart to keep the files of the legal schmiegel that's going on and what they're going to present in court. And just yesterday, she barricaded herself in this room where she was allowed to Zoom and meet with her. Um, and in her chart analysis, we discovered her temperament and how that she's a bit of a self-contained individual. And she definitely is somebody that's got inner conflict about who she really is, what she presents as a socialite. But that doesn't mean that's who you are. Remember that mankind is the one who created titles. And yes, we earn our degrees, but we are not our degrees. We are not our jobs. We are not our roles. We play them. We do them. They infer the behavior that's expected. But who you are is something very pure. The interesting thing about the Geminian complex in her father, Robert, his feigned name, Robert Maxwell, where he lived an entire fake life, guys. He never acknowledged his Jewish faith, his roots, his ancestry, nor his humble beginnings. Her father had Neptune in Leo, and though we don't know the wheel of life emphatically, I can tell you that where Gemini is, where Neptune is in the birth chart, some sort of scandal is inferred. Leo is the sign of the father. And from the get-go, this guy married, made this other big fake life, had this fake accent, pretending he's British. Have you ever talked to Eastern Europeans? They don't sound British for the love of lemons. And then his children took on this persona because it was what they heard, what they saw, what they learned. This is indeed something as human beings we can all relate to. We are, we do learn what we live. And in university or in charm school, we learn these applied facades of behavior, etiquette, of what is expected. So this very conflicted man had this very dark Black Moon Lilith and Aries squaring two more malefics, Mars and Pluto in Cancer, the sign of the mother, and squaring again Saturn retrograde in Libra. Saturn talks about the fathers of our fathers of the fathers of our paternity. It's ancestral, where he in this lifetime turned his back retrograde on his paternal Jewish Yiddish lineage. And then it squares eventually his social position in life because Capricorn of essential dignity is at the top of the chart, and it speaks of our public reputation, our service to humanity. And he indeed not only, and he's got Jupiter in Scorpio. And Jupiter is this big gas giant in the universe, and cosmologically, its interpretation for as above and so below is that it can inflate the ego. Because why? Because he's got it in the water signs, and it's in a trine to, let me see. His Jupiter in Scorpio is trining his Mars and Pluto in Cancer and trining the malefic Uranus in Pisces. Wow. So this is shocks, things hidden, things under the surface that we can't quite see, more facade we can't see. The water signs represent the subconscious realm and things that are hidden. Scorpio are secretive things. Pisces, we can't quite put our finger on it and figure it out. And so this theme bled down from his disguise into his 8 children, into the legacy that he created, that stained, that is corrupted, and he ended his life, came to meet his ends in a very mysterious way in the waters of the world in the dark of the night. Some say he slipped over the railing of his yacht, the Lady Ghislane, that he named after his daughter, that we analyzed, because he used to climb onto the deck and in the middle of the night urinate over the boat. Some say he did that, others say he was murdered. We don't know. The same dilemma and complex and creepy irony in the man that Ghislane spent most of her time with, Jeffrey Epstein. Was he hanged in prison? Did he kill himself? Or did someone kill him? So we have mystery whenever, and it doesn't matter who you are. You don't need to be a celebrity or famous or infamous person, criminal, or whatever. The focal point of these webinars are that we can see these same traits and characteristics in everyday people. So as I said, we all have Gemini. There's a part of all of us that have this Geminian complex. An inner is my inner self being expressed to the outer world? Am I hiding secrets? Am I of two minds? Do I live two lives? Do I pretend I'm somebody at my job, but indeed I'm somebody else behind closed doors? These are the Geminian complex. The problems that are that Mercury that's in heaven or that Mercury that's in hell, and expressing himself in hellish, hateful ways, or expressing himself of worthy and kind mind. So these webinars are very interesting, and I told you, you kind of get to crack open the mind of an astrologer for a mere $10. I hope you'll join us. We're going to meet on the 14th of September. We'll meet at 10 o'clock in the morning. Excuse me a second. I think I changed. No, I changed that. We're going to meet at September 14th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And let me, where is my date book? Yes. September 14th at 1 p.m. we'll meet for this webinar. Now, please, again, don't forget to comment below and say if you're more interested in looking at Prince Andrew. I'm leaning that way because he is alive and he was just subpoenaed in a civil lawsuit by one of the people that he trafficked. If you love this, if you're interested in this, if you're going to get in with me, because this is going to be worldwide news. As she goes on trial, we will find out as a public what's going on behind the scenes while she's currently incarcerated. But more importantly, the best interview I've ever seen in 59 years by this amazing, she should receive a Nobel laureate in my opinion for her skill. I love Virgo's ability to analyze. You're the best. And that's why I'm starting my school during Virgo season. You make great analysts. Her name's Emily Maitlis, and go look at the BBC. I know that it's on YouTube, and no matter where you are in the world, you can find Emily Maitlis interviewing Prince Andrew. If you're new to this scandal, if you don't know what it's all about, do see that video and that 60-minute interview and try to look at it as an astrologer and just see, because you'll see that each of these people in this triple tryst that are bound by chains and in karmic knots for the friendship that began and then the diabolical threats and filming behind back and the coercion that was going on, some of the sabotage and threats of exposure, that again, the truth finally came out and these people are in criminal trouble. And they did heinous and diabolical things to very little girls that changed them forever. For the subconscious mind never forgets what it experiences. No matter how much therapy we have, no matter what we do, therapy is a wonderful realization. It can free up and help that bubble up and out, but it doesn't change the fact that it happened. And we live with that for our life long. That's the reason that astrology and psychology are so well enmeshed. So do go see that 60-minute interview. I know Australia's got it, the BBC has it, YouTube's got it for sure. Just, input under videos, Prince Andrew and Emily Maitlis interview. You're going to see, though his signs, his three keys are not in Gemini, Prince Andrew, you'll see Gemini acting out through the whole interview. I call him Prince Pervert. I refer to him as Prince Pinocchio because you can indeed in real time, in real auditory experience, hear this guy twisting and turning lies. He's such a bad liar, and she's such a great interviewer that she, in a very teeny tiny Virgoan way, keeps at the point, keeps at the point, keeps needling at the point. And that's such a beautiful skill that, like I said, she deserves a Nobel laureate, and she's an extraordinary interviewer. And this is a fascinating look at human nature and we all have dark sides. We all have compulsions. Every one of us have Gemini in our chart. We all have a Geminian complex, and we all need to resolve these conflicts internally and then absolutely externally. The world at large is embroiled in a huge Geminian complex, for our nodes have been in Gemini and will be through the winter. There's a lot going on in the world right now. It's not an easy time. And again, I do personal readings, I do compatibility readings, I do legacy readings for your ancestors passed on. And I can show you, if I've done readings for the whole family, who your child is more similar to of the relatives gone by. Flesh them out. So not only will you have a picture of them, but you can see them. Most importantly, don't forget that Astrology by the Stars School starts September the 7th at 10 a.m. via Zoom. Make sure your Zoom is up to date so that you don't have any trouble logging on. Because I'm not recording these, I'm already paying for professional Zoom, and I'm a deep astrologer. And sometimes that hour and a half bleeds over a little bit. And before I knew it, I used up all the recording time that Zoom offers. And I'm just not going to keep spending money for things to review. You can record them if you want them to, but I'm not going to, and nor am I going to pay for that. So just remember, this is a really interesting look at human behavior in real time. The nice thing about these public persona are that we can see these same traits and energies, planetary working out in everyday ordinary human beings. They are the research and stuff that has helped astrologers make definitive clues, just like epidemiologists see the patterns and traits of bacteria, fungi, and virus to determine the outcome of what will be plague or sickness or flu. It's not any different. Analytical work, no matter the course, always boils down to emphatic scientific proof and fact. Some people do pop astrology. I don't. Some people um, approach it very superficially and copy each other. We see video after video on the internet of these astrologers that are copying my favorite astrologer, Lotta, and it kind of sickens me. If you're really an intellectual, if you're truly intellectual and truly scholarly, you'll dig into astrology and you don't have to copy anyone. You can do everything your own way. And against this Geminian complex of stealing copyright and stealing people's notes and stealing people's ideas and that every astrologer goes through the wheel of transits. Start with Aries, then to Taurus, and come up with your own ways, really. You'd be much more interesting. More people would listen to you. And so that's another facade of Gemini, not sure who he is. Sometimes we'll see Gemini as depicted with a mask because he's so not sure of who he is internally with that external and internal conflict that he does have to monkey and mimic this person and that person and copy what Lotta does and copy what I do or copy what another astrologer does because he's not being true to himself. And believe me when I tell you, I'm the kind of astrologer that's not afraid of any subject. I've helped people that have gotten deadly diagnoses. I've helped people that have been in really dark relationships. I'm not afraid. I'm a grandmother and I'm a mother and I've lived through some life-changing experiences. And astrology is our answer. So come and learn with me the way I teach you to feel and to see that person in that wheel microscopically, telescopically, and through the 5 dimensions that are the soul emerging and then the soul dissipating back to go home again. And the fate that happens between in the choices and connections we make on this planet. Just like the poor decisions that a father who would meet a daughter in his 9th child and how their lives got tangled and twisted and tormented so that she would end up in prison so that her brothers would be sued. And it all boils down to pretending to be people that they weren't and getting themselves involved in some dark, secretive episode after episode after episode between sex and money, wielding diabolical powers over others. And it's so fascinating. And the reason we're going to carry this every 14th of the month on until probably after Christmas, because we'll go look into the chart at what's coming out in the news and what we're finding out so that you can see how living astrology is. You really can live astrology. It's an energetic dynamic that's chemical, that's powerful, and that interacts and intersects our daily lives. Even if you think of a really boring life, believe me when I tell you, the stars are always twinkling, the sun's always going to come up, the moon will always be our nightlight, and we human beings are porous. Yes, we have a body, but we're much more spiritual than we are physical. And that's another beauty of astrology. So you take care. Again, remember those dates. 7th September begins the first astrological module. I will teach one-on-one. It's going to cost you a little bit more because you get more intensive study. You can DM me or email me about that. Ducky at 3keysastrology.com is my email address. If you can't work out that time, the next thing is celebrity webinars, or in this case, we're looking at criminals, 3 criminals and their behavior that are socialites and famous, but now infamous people. That's going to happen on the 14th of every month. And if I ask you in the last webinar to please put down times that work for you, according to my home in New York, Eastern Standard Time, so we don't have confusion if you're, Pacific time or if you live in Australia or if you're up in Scotland, stay with me. Let's do it according to my time so there's no confusion. And then you can adapt since people from all over the world are popping in. All right, you guys, I hope you have a really happy day. We've got some interesting, I did a webinar, I did a YouTube channel for the weather of the astrology for September, this Virgo. Very interesting. There's a lot of healing energy. It's a really great time of the year, and it's probably the nicest month before the year ends. So do pray. And I actually, before we leave this, I ask you, would you please pray with me? I think and have been praying because when more than 2 people come together with the same prayer, God is listening. He listens anyway. But if we could pray that God take the meanness out of mankind, and it's getting softer, nature's getting softer, it's getting better, the babies being born now, these new generations are different than they were 100 years ago. Let's pray for God to take the meanness out of mankind, to wipe out meanness. Can you imagine what a beautiful world this would be if man didn't have the capacity, potential to be mean? And I mean greed. I mean anger. I mean threats. I mean putting other people down. I mean sarcasm. I mean even jokes that people think are funny that indeed have their roots in some form of hatred. So let's pray together to take hatred and meanness out of mankind. I leave you with this. Thank you for joining me. Thank you again for all of you that have been so loving and caring, who've become my new friends, and most of all to Lada for giving me this opportunity. Oh my gosh, to meet you. It makes me cry, actually. It's so wonderful to wake up and do this work each and every day. I look so forward to teaching you, to consulting you in astrology. A lot of you that have gotten my readings, actually, I've got a 90% return. For the people that I've read for have come back to get astrology coaching. And it's fun because what we do is we look a little deeper into your chart and help you start to see like an astrologer that might spark your interest in becoming one. So you take care. You have a really great day. And don't forget, celebrity webinars, blah, 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 blah. Celebrity/criminal webinars on the 14th of every month for as long as I'm with Lada. And for $10, you get to come on in and see analysis in real time. It's fun. And then school, September 7th, 10 a.m. for an hour and a half for 10 weeks. Then you pay for the second module, another 10 weeks every Tuesday morning for an hour and a half. And so it goes until after 4 of those modules, you will have enough knowledge to practice astrology. And it's in that practice that you can become very, very good at it. You take care and have a great day. Bye for now.